So good morning everyone, welcome to Satsang. For those who don't know, we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. You can send your questions, comes directly to me. The number appears on the comments. It is quite easy to use. Let's make some silence first. Silence. All that is. Undisturbed silence. No thoughts, no desires. Silence is bliss. I am silence. Abandon all distractions, all desires. Embrace, surrender to silence. So today let's speak a little bit about desires. Any quest, whichever it is always happiness based. Everything you do, everything you're searching for, everything you want to experience, it is for happiness' sake. This is very important because when you understand this, it seems that there's nothing to understand. It's obvious, but it's not that obvious. Because when you understand that you're in the quest for happiness only, things become more clear. And this is the only quest there is. The quest for happiness, nothing else. So the distraction is born out of this innate quest, innate desire for happiness. And in the beginning, more or less, your idea of happiness is something whole, something complete, something intense, unlimited also. It's not the appropriate word. It's not just a little happiness. It is fullness. But with time and experiences of life, you tend to reduce this to what seems to be possible for you, whatever that means. But still, it is the quest for happiness, for that everlasting happiness. Like the fairy tales, they end in they lived happily ever after. So this is what everybody is looking for, to live happily ever after, even if they are not aware of this. So desires pop in your mind to hijack, to take advantage of this primary quest, because it is the compass to self-realization, and it hijacks it with desires that come with the firm belief that if you realize those desires, if you live them, then you'll live happily ever after. And this is why there's this running towards the desires, this suffering connected to them, this intense need, because without desires, there wouldn't be any movement whatsoever. It is the struggle for perfection, for totality. It is the struggle for everlasting bliss. So these desires, they pop up and convince you that this is what you need. And you don't understand this. It comes, a relationship, maternity, paternity, whatever. This job, that job, possessing this, that. It's endless desires, endless desires. And then to a point you imagine that if you fulfill all of those desires, if you put these fragments of happiness together, it will form that big, big happiness. But it won't. So that which makes you invest and waste your time in those desires that come, that arise, you don't question them. You believe that they are yours, they are true. And it's very difficult to disconnect from this. It is very difficult. Nature doesn't make it easy. But then at the same time, It is inviting you to reflect because you are having experiences. You are getting your relationships and family and that work and whatever you're asking. Some you do, some you don't, because, well, illusion has to ensure continuity. So some desires can be fulfilled now, others are put a little bit more in front. And you are experiencing and not seeing the message that life is giving you at the same time. It is distracting you from one part, but it's clarifying you from another. So from the standpoint of clarification, your frustrations in life, they are telling you that they don't have what you're looking for. For a seeker of truth, which is mistaken and going after these desires like everyone else, he is getting this direct message. Of course, it's not easy to see, but it is there in plain sight. And it's not easy because there's always this idea that it didn't work as expected because, well, there's something wrong with me. There's a problem. When I fix that problem with me, then things will be the way I thought them to be. And you see, time flies. And these desires, they start very early and they never end, more or less. If you understand happiness beyond the image of happiness, which you have, everyone does. It's not yours the way you imagine it, but it is there. So if you take that image away, what is left is a state. Not a circumstance, but a state, because this is what you feel and experience. It's not what you see or touch or the circumstance, but how the circumstance makes you feel. So let's go back. It is a quest for happiness, not a relationship, for example, but the happiness you imagine that comes from a relationship. With all desires is the same. And that happiness is not the relationship, is what you imagine that relationship will bring. But erasing that image of happiness through the relationship, it is happiness. It is the way you feel. So if you reflect a little bit into this, if you stop to reflect, which is very difficult to really reflect, to go deep, because you're being dragged by those desires. But when you reflect on that, and you see that behind any investment of yours, there is the idea of happiness in its outcome. And that happiness, it's not the image, but how you feel, how you experience yourself. And it all comes back to this. So it's not those images of circumstances, relationships, possessions, whatever. because these desires change. But what is expected from them doesn't. And even if you, okay, so I want this to be enormous, unlimited, but that's not reasonable. The reasonable is a little bit of joy, even for a little bit. Okay, you can use reason to do this, and it may buy you a little bit of peace, but not much more than that, because that will not be enough, because what is driving you is that unlimited happiness. Fairy tales express it beautifully. Happily ever after. This is what is calling you. That happiness, that fullness has other names. God realization, self-realization. And it's more or less a game of I don't know what's the name in English, find and seek. Seek to find. There's an expression for this, but I don't remember. It's kind of a game. You're being seduced by illusion, but at the same time, you're getting your feedbacks about the desires that you are going after. But it's very difficult for a belief, for an image of happiness to fall without being replaced by a new one. And for an image of happiness to fall, that is very difficult. It is very strong. People change. Relationships, they change. Jobs, they change everything. And they keep on changing. Sometimes they waste a lifetime doing the same change and not getting the message. And it doesn't matter if things are bad. They may be good also, but they do not satisfy that inner quest, that primary goal. They can be the best, and the best they result in emptiness. The worst result in frustration. Because if things didn't go in the way that you planned that they should be, so that happiness could be experienced, then you get frustrated and you go after another relationship. But if things go the way that you imagine it, this is not very often, but it happens, then there will be emptiness because what you're looking for is not there. And those who get frustrated, they still have the best of those experiences, because those who don't get frustrated, it's really quite more difficult. Emptiness is much more difficult than frustration, because frustration gives you the hope of amending that. Because you can find a lot of excuses why happiness is not there. But when you don't have this, when there's just emptiness and things were the way they're supposed to be, then it's even more difficult, because there's no hope. And for sure, you must have met someone like this that has it all. I have it all. They cannot even complain, because if they complain to someone, they will all immediately get pointed out. But you have everything. What are you complaining about? It's much easy to deal with frustration than with emptiness. One gives you hope, the other one doesn't. But they are both clarification. So there's nothing wrong with that primary goal, with that primary desire for happiness, for fullness. And this is mirroring in your life the way it can, according to your level of understanding. But everything is there in front of you, waiting for you to have eyes to see. It's not a relationship. It's the happiness you imagine that comes from the relationship. But that fullness, it comes only through self-realization or God-realization. That is the force which is pulling you. Because in the end, it has nothing to do with circumstances, but what can be described as a state. In this case, a perpetual state of bliss. And in this game, you have a certain amount of time. Like in a video game, you have a certain specific amount of time to complete that task. If you waste time, you fail. And start again, start again, start again. Until you understand the name of the game. And when you understand really, clearly, that it is happiness that you're looking for and not circumstances, that you only seek those circumstances because by some miracle you are convinced that through those circumstances happiness comes. Look around. Everybody is running after their own carrots. Carrots that are being placed in front. That image of the donkey following the carrot, it's exactly the way it is. The donkey thinks he will eventually catch the carrot and eat it, and very juicy and sweet carrot. Oh, I want it very bad. And he keeps on going. But the carrot is there for a different reason, just to make the donkey walk and continue to walk. So all your desires that present themselves, and it's very difficult because whatever manifests there, you're convinced that is yours, it is you. So it is your will, your desire. But if you can understand that it is only about happiness, it will make a very big difference in your life. Because first, you may be thinking, oh, this is about relationships. So when I can improve my relationship skills, then I will have a chance. So if you go for help in this sense, you will go for help for those who have succeeded in relationships, who are a reference in that area. But when you know it is about happiness, you will make a different quest. You will search for those who have achieved that everlasting happiness. And if you see that through every circumstance, it is the same thing that you want. It is that state, that fulfillment. It has nothing to do with the circumstance in itself. Some of you even have experienced something like this without any circumstance to say, oh, it was because of this. Some of you even have experienced that. So desires are there to make you waste your time, to keep you distracted. But they are also clarifying you. But you'll need to grow up, because without growing up, you cannot see. But if you look honestly to your desires, to that which you're dedicating your time to experience, you will see that it is not about the circumstance. It is about the happiness that you imagine that comes through the circumstance. And the world will never, never, never have that to offer you. It is there to the opposite. So for a seeker of truth, this is a must. The majority of you are just wasting time doing a lot of things at the same time because you want it all. You want the highest happiness and you want the smallest happiness. You haven't realized that it is only about happiness. And for happiness, there's no other way. It is about going to the source. It's not about crumbs, it's about the pot. And I will repeat it one more time. Desires are there with a promise of happiness. And whatever you're investing is for happiness' sake only. It's not about circumstances. It's not about relationships, possessions, whatever's, acceptance, this, that. It is about happiness. It's about happiness only. And the idea that happiness is circumstantial comes through circumstances. That is what is binding you and making you waste your time. For those who never heard about self-realization, well, that see God as someone who is there helping them to fulfill their desires of happiness. Well, but for those who know a little bit more than this, they have a chance if they stop wasting it. Okay, so next satsang will be Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. So if there's any doubt about this, questions you want to ask, just send them through this number. Doesn't matter if now or whenever you watch this video, and I will answer in the next one. Until then, make use of your instruments of perception, of reason. Reflect. Stop wasting your time. Or continue. Well, it's your time. Okay. Watch.